Hi, I'm REM, and I am in a Goodreads group, which has a challenge where basically you give people 5 books, and they have to choose one for you to read. So this time I put up the books, The Summer Dragon, Cinders and Sparrows, A Problematic Paradox, Borderline, and finally the one that was chosen for me, The Beholden by Cassandra Rose Clark. The person who chose this for me said they chose it because the cover is beautiful, which is not a lie. It is beautiful. But this is one that I was actually quite nervous about because I saw a lot of bad reviews about it. I don't remember exactly when this came out, but I remember when it came out, there were first some good reviews, and then there were a lot of bad reviews. I think especially about the pacing. And when I downloaded the book to my Kindle, I realized it has 537 pages. I didn't check to see if there's anything at the back, but still, even if it's 500 pages, I have mentioned on the channel that I'm not really a fan of big books because most of the time I feel like the pacing is off and they could have been shortened. But so far, I'm 112 pages in, and I'm really enjoying it. Is it my favorite book of all time? No, and I don't think it's going to be, but so far I'm really enjoying it. So, and also, the summary on the back and how the book started, which is basically all that summary at once, also made me really unsure about the pacing because, what's going on. But I will tell you what the book is actually about and not what the summary in the back said, because the summary in the back was just, the first half of the first chapter. So this happens in a fantasy world, and we're going to talk more about that fantasy world in a second, but we are following 3 characters. We're following 2 sisters and a pirate turned sailor. And so our 2 sisters go and ask a goddess for a favor. And their guide is a sailor who really does not want to be there. He's not into this, but he has to because he really needs the money to pay back debts to some nasty people. And that's the first chapter, basically. Then, and the goddess gives him the favor, but it's you all are beholden. That's why it's called the Beholden. You're going to have to pay a debt back. Then we skip 5 years. And we see each of our characters have moved on with their lives. They're really coming into their own. We're really seeing them thrive. And then we get news of some really weird and creepy things happening to the country north of the border. And then the goddess comes and asks them to pay their debts. And she's basically saying, listen, the things that are happening, everybody thinks that one thing is happening, which we've already seen because some other characters involved in it. But actually, if they continue going down that path, they're going to destroy the world. So you guys are going to help make sure that they don't destroy the world. And I'm going to tell you all more about it when you come to this place that I've decided you need to come to. And so first of all, that's a really fun plot, and one thing I love about this book is their originality. That's not a plot I've ever heard before. Specifically, in general, you do have a lot of something's going to destroy the world, we need to save it, but I don't think I've ever seen a story before where we see the buildup of, oh my gosh, we think this bad thing is going to happen to destroy the world, we have an idea how to fix it. The side characters are the one who go off to fix the world, and then suddenly our main characters are dragged into someone else is telling them, well, no, actually, they're all wrong, and you're going to make sure that they don't destroy the world. That's crazy. I have never seen that type of plot before, I don't think. And I love that. And speaking of originality, you remember how I said I'm going to talk about the fantasy world? Because, oh my god, I love it so much. I am obsessed with it. So many fantasy worlds are based so clearly on a real time and place. And that's fine. But, oh my god, this isn't exactly a series of unfortunate events, because it is kind of clear where it's in time, but the world is just not our world. It's awesome. We have 2 main empires plus another land that we're not really involved right now. I don't know if it's going to come into play. And we're following characters in one empire, and we're kind of getting the history, but it's not info dumping. It's all weaved in very nicely and extremely relevant to the plot. And so we're getting like the weather, which is also extremely plot relevant, and also like, but it's also weaved in so nicely, like just like about the way it makes the characters feel. And also our characters, we have our sailor who's a foreigner to both of these lands, and we have our characters who are native to the lands, and we see like how differently it affects them, that the sailor comes from a cooler land and where it's not as much humidity, and he absolutely hates it, and he's like, oh my god, rain, finally, when it's cold outside. And meanwhile, our sisters who are originally from this land are like, yes, nice humidity, ha, oh my god, cold rain, I cannot stand it, I'm going to freeze. So it just, the details are woven in so nicely. I feel scared speaking about the book like this because, like I said, this is over 500 pages, and I don't really like long books, and there are a lot of complaints about the pacing, so I might DNF it, but I don't think I'll regret it. Like, even if I read to that point and realize I want to DNF it, I want to remember this moment and be like, I had fun reading it, and if I get to a point where I want to DNF it, it's okay, because I don't want to read when it's not fun anymore, but it's not like I didn't have fun. I was forcing myself to read through it. I was having a lot of fun. I love the originality of the plot. I love the world building. I've not mentioned either that they're kind of in the transition kind of into a industrial era, but it's not a full-on industrial revolution. Like, there aren't factories, but steamships are a big thing. And again, just the fact that everyone travels by ship on this land, and I bet the transport is such a big thing. But again, the originality, the way stuff is woven in, and how natural it feels, and also how relevant stuff are to plot. So like, at first, like, you're reading it and you're like, okay, so I'm reading the first chapter, I'm like, okay, so they're describing this jungle to us. Okay, it's relevant to the plot. They're describing them going down on a riverboat, and then it's a steamboat, and we have this sailor who's from a different land, and he's been in this land, and it just seems like part of the book. And then you read more, and you're like, oh, that's how it's connected to the plot. So anyways, super enjoying it right now. Hope I continue to do so. I just totally nearly forgot to update you again twice. I remembered when I was in the shower, and then I was like, I'll come out of the shower, and it's been like 20 minutes, and I forgot. But June 22nd, I'm now at page 298 of The Beholders, and I'm really not seeing any pacing problems. There is still like quite a lot of the book left to go. I believe I have 56%, so I still do have 44%, so maybe the pacing problems were there then. But really, listen, if this were to go by the summary is just so off. Like, the more I read, the more the summary is wrong. Like, only the first sentence was correct. But yes, if we were to go by the summary, then the pacing would be really off. But since the summary's not what's happening, the pacing's not off. And I'm really liking it. I just absolutely love the world building. First of all, there's just so many different types of magic, and I'm a sucker. You tell me there's more than one type of magic, you tell me there's 3+ types of magic, and I am all here for it. But there is one character that I'm unsure about. There is magic involved, so it might end up being something different, but I'm like unsure of where his personality is, and like how it can be kind of split the way it is. So we'll see, because there is magic involved that might be influencing his personality. So we are getting also points of view from our 3 main characters, Celestia, Izara, and Iko, but really, we're really getting most of the points of view from Celestia, so I'm counting her as our main character, which is partially just because I really like her as a character. I would hate speaking to her in real life, but it's interesting because Izara is generally the kind of person I would think would be the main character of a book. She isn't very good at social graces, so she just kind of is not doesn't care, but she cares, but then she realizes she's just not managing it, so she stops caring, and she really stops caring when things are interesting to her. Like, if she'll try, but then like the second something's interesting to her, she'll just totally forget. Like she's onto this interesting thing. She's a very, very scholarly character. She really, really likes science and math, and so she's kind of the logical one. So like Celestia will have all these superstitions, and she'll be like, that's not true, right? And then she'll kind of give up because Celestia is not going to listen. This is too deep in what Celestia believes. So I do relate to Izara on that level. Like, I do find myself a lot of times being like, that's not true, but I'm not going to convince you. There's no point in arguing. But Celestia, I just find so intriguing. She is extremely classist and sexist. I especially find the sexism intriguing. While the classism and sexism are wound into each other, it cannot be extricated from each other. Personally, I just live in Israel where classism isn't really a thing. This was built as a socialist country by poor people. So classism is less of a thing, but I do find it so interesting because like nowadays we're very aware of sexism, which is a good thing. But that means that if someone is going to be sexist, in general, they'll at least say, well, I know people will consider this sexist, or I know this is kind of sexist, but whereas Celestia, she doesn't even think of saying it because it's so ingrained. So she's like, yes, I'm a nobleman's wife, or actually, I'm a noble woman myself. Her husband actually isn't a nobleman, but I'm a noble woman. Of course I have to lie down and rest during my whole pregnancy, otherwise the baby will come out wrong. Of course I need a man to do all that counts for me. I'm not capable because I'm a noble woman. And I don't know, I just find that so intriguing. Like, I also think that in general, it's not only not a character you see in nowadays books for obvious reasons. I feel like even in old books, it's actually, you don't see that as a main character. You'll see it as someone who's being criticized, which I agree. Like, I totally understand why in old books that would be someone who's criticized, but it's just so intriguing to see her. And also, she's a very different type of character than what we usually see, and I just find it very interesting to see her beliefs and how that is influenced by the world she's in. Like, the world building is tied to how she acts, and it's tied to how Izara acts too, but Izara is more likely not to outright reject it, but just ignore it. So, and at the same time, I feel like a lot of the time when we see these characters who are very good at social graces and stuff, first of all, they won't be sexist, or they'll immediately be like, oh, well, I figured out sexism and it's bad. But also, secondly, it will work for them all the time. Like, they'll be like, okay, let's just go and do stuff. And that's not true. Like, in this book, all of our characters contribute equally. Sometimes we really need Izara's scholarly skills. Sometimes we really need Iko's skills. Sometimes we need Celestia's skills. And I also like how they all kind of take turns being the brain cell. None of them are dumb, but they're in a very, very stressful situation where they're all kind of panicking. And in stressful situations, you kind of lose the brain cell. So they're all kind of taking turns being the brain cell, which I find really fun as well. The characters themselves, I don't think they're anything to write home about. Like, I'm not falling in love with any of them as a character. Despite the fact that I said that I find Celestia very interesting and intriguing, I'm not like, oh my gosh, she's my favorite character ever now. But yeah, you can tell I'm enjoying this book. And hopefully the pacing is okay for the next 44 parts, 44%, and the characters don't fall apart, and that thing with Celestia's husband and his personality is okay. Okay, hi, it is June 24th, and I'm page 441 of The Beholden. I want to tell you I got something wrong. I mixed up. It is not 573 pages, it's 537 pages. And I'm still really liking it. I am feeling it a little bit, like, getting a bit slow. In that I'm like, oh, we're doing this now? Like, there was a part where they get stopped on their journey, and it was part that obviously needed to happen, but it was like, and I feel like if it was a shorter book, I wouldn't have minded it. But the fact that it was already so long, and then it's like, oh my god, we're getting stopped again, that annoyed me. Then, but I got over it. Then, right now, there was a Deus Ex Machina, like a literal Deus Ex Machina. I mean, the Ariana say they're not gods, but they're and then they have to play by certain rules, but their rules and world are so far removed from the humans' rules that I think it counts. You can call them gods. So I'm not quite sure how I feel about that right now because it literally just happened. Other than that, we've actually gotten quite a bit more of Izara's point of view in this next section I've been reading, and I'm also really enjoying her point of view, and I'm really enjoying her as a character as we read more. She is also prejudiced in different ways than, well, not always in different ways, but yes, in different ways than Celestia is, and they also have different personalities, and I just love thinking about it, like how their original personalities shaped their prejudices in the society because of the society that they live in. Like the fact that Celestia is much more friendly while Izara is basically suspicious of everyone based on the fact that Izara had such a hard time socially, whereas Celestia always got along. But also there's this developing friendship between Celestia and another character that is not a noble, and that is also interesting to see of like Celestia's like isn't realizing the concept that they're friends now because she's like because she is prejudiced and it cannot enter her head that she can be friends with a lower class person. Hey, it is June 25th, and I finished this book quite a few hours ago. And listen, I loved it. I absolutely love this book. I have no complaints except that this book takes place in a hot, like the clothes don't match the weather places that the book takes place in. But I absolutely love this book. I highly recommend it. Like I thought it was great. And I was thinking that maybe that one of the problems that people possibly had, if the reviews are even correct, like if I even remember the reviews correctly, is that I do have the thing where I tend to like very character-driven books, and other people think, and I see a lot of times in books that are very character-driven, that people think that they're very slow, or that they're boring, or that nothing happens. So I wonder if that is what happens here, because while this book isn't character driven, we are mainly seeing stuff like through the characters' perspectives. That's weird to say because that generally is how books work. But I mean, like, we will see something through a character's perspective, and then we'll see something through Celestia's perspective, and then we'll get Izara or Iko's perspective, and we'll suddenly see how they see the same thing so differently. Isn't like the timeline is, we're not seeing exactly the same thing, but like they're traveling, so they'll be in the same situation for a few days, or they'll be thinking back over something, and so we'll see the same or similar thing from different perspectives, and it will totally change how it's looked at, which I thought was so awesome and cool. But I can see how people would see that as slow. Okay, so I looked at some of the reviews, and it's kind of crazy because, yes, they are very low. Like, the majority of the ones that I saw were 2 or 3 stars. Well, 3 stars isn't bad. It was quite stunning how many were that low. And it's kind of crazy, first of all, because you'll get, 2, 3 stars reviews, and one will say, oh, I love the character growth, and the next one will be like, there was no character growth, it was flat. So I'm kind of wondering if we're all reading the same book. One thing that a lot of people did complain about that I disagree with is that the world building wasn't done well, and they're particularly speaking about the magic systems. They were like, they weren't explained all the way, and yes, I agree that the magic systems weren't explained all the way, but there wasn't any need for them to be explained all the way. They were explained enough for us to understand Izara's character and for us to understand what was going on in the book. We didn't need a full explanation of exactly how the different magic systems work. I mean, particularly because Izara didn't fully understand how each magic system worked. We understood what Izara understood, and that's basically the deepest we got because Izara was our most knowledgeable character about magic. When we were in Iko or Celestia's perspective, we basically got nothing. So I did see a few stuff of like, oh, they were just talking to each other, nothing really happened. So I do think that my theory that I really like these books that are very character focused and a lot of people don't and find them slow is the correct one. But anyways, I love this book. Thanks for watching.